Well, I'm having we got to have a quick conversation. Everybody will love that. And I didn't answer your question. This is for Bravo, California, which goes out to about 6,000 people. It's the video all over Southern
Oh,
California,
wow.
particularly, and also for my lovely uh, Santa Barbara Casa magazine in Santa Barbara, Little Arts Weekly in Santa Barbara.
Fabulous.
We'll do a reduced. Anywho, I am talking to Alexandra LoBianco, and she has the really amazing opportunity and a whole lot of stuff we'll talk about. She is the soprano, and she is singing the lead role in Gian Carlo Menotti's The Consul. And we're going to talk a lot about this work, I hope, within 12 minutes. But the point is, she plays the character Magda. She'll give us a little rundown on the plot briefly. But the point is, this is a work by Gian Carlo Menotti that premiered in 1950. It won the Pulitzer Prize, or a little before probably. It won the Pulitzer Prize in
Yes.
1950. It won the New York City Drama Critics Circle Award in 1950. It
Mhm.
ran on Broadway. Hello?
Yes.
Broadway.
Yes.
Not the
Hello,
Metropolitan Opera.
Broadway.
This is a crossover work I had no idea as a kid. I listened to it over and over again as a kid, and I'm revisiting it some 50 or more years later. But this is really a masterpiece. It is a dramatic role.
Most definitely.
Alexandra will speak to that, but let's get started and I know let me deal with some of your colleagues. Okay, we've got Joshua Jeremiah, baritone, and we have
Mhm.
Nina Yoshida Nelson, and she is one of ours. Back
Yeah.
to sing for. She sings the role of the secretary at the consulate. Alexandra will give us a little idea of what that role is. Joshua is John Sorrell, Magda Sorrell's husband, and we'll talk about that. But first, Alexandra, give me just a little brief capsule. We've got all the good stuff about your debuts and all that good thing, but where's the history? Where's the start? What colleges? That kind of thing.
Oh my goodness. Well, I actually started off as a double major, as a performance clarinetist
Oh no,
initially.
no! I'm a clarinetist. Oh my
It's
God.
true. I was a double performance major initially in college, and actually on scholarship for my clarinet before
Oh,
I was for my voice. I was a mezzo at that point in time. I started at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida, and I almost quit music. I was ready to quit. I was a bit burnt out. 9 ensembles my freshman year or so made things a little interesting. Playing multiple different instruments and playing already gigging at 18, playing pit orchestra gigs was a lot. And so I got burnt out and went to a junior college at the time, which is now St. Petersburg College in St. Petersburg, Florida, and got my associate's degree and fell back in love with music and really found my way back to loving it as part of my being and not just my job or already at that time at 18 years old, which just sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And I had the intention of transferring to go into music therapy to finish my degree, and that which is what led me to Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And I went up there initially for therapy, and this little thing in my chest called my heart went thump 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 as soon as I started to audition, and I said, nope, I cannot get my heart off the stage. There's something in me that tells me I need to be on stage. And I finished
beautiful.
only my bachelor's at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina, and I'm a good upstate girl. I'm a good mountaineer. And I, at that point in time, I was still a mezzo. Started working with Opera Carolina in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the chorus.
This is big.
Yeah, it was a really
This is big.
wonderful first job.
Yeah.
And a couple years after that, I met my now teacher and mentor, which is where I made my switch. Her name is Carol Kirkpatrick, and she will actually be coming to the opening of this show, and I'm thrilled because it's the first time she'll ever get to see me perform in 10 years of working with her. We've been working with each other. I've been working with her since 2004, right after my first debut with Opera Carolina, which was the Lady in Waiting to Lady Macbeth and Verdi's Macbeth. So, no pressure to start off a career. Start the career with Verdi. Here we go. And on we go. And my first lesson with Carol, I will never forget it. She warmed me up my first couple of scales, etc. And she looked at me after I finished and went, "Well, number one, you're using about a third of your voice. And number two, you're a soprano.
Hmm.
We fought about this for the next year.
Yeah.
That little fact. And it wasn't until I started working, I coached with Nico Castel, who was a very famous character tenor, as well as librettist and translator of operas, that he looked at me and said, "My dear, you understand.
Hmm.
There are no 26-year-old dramatic sopranos, but you are very, very close." And it was through him. So my education really developed after collegiate studies.
And
And
I'm glad you mentioned dramatic soprano. We are looking
yes.
at. I'm going to get us back to Consul. Thank you very much. What a brilliant overview. In the Consul, it's a
Hmm.
very dramatic work, and
Very.
it's based on a true story, as I understand it. And
It is.
the boogeymen are not the commies or the Soviets. The
No,
boogeyman in the true story is the U.S. consulate, and how
absolutely.
slow consulates in general are to
Yes.
help people who are in desperate need. And remember, everybody who was alive then. I know about this now, but in 1950, the end of World War II, and the beginnings of the Iron Curtain, and the deep, deep Cold War. And this opera is about that struggle that you, Alexandra, have to try
Yes.
and find asylum for your husband and your family. Why don't you give us a quick overview of the story, if you can, in a quick way?
Mhm. Well, you've actually kind of already done it in many ways. My husband is a freedom fighter, and my mother and my child and I are waiting for him to come back from one of his meetings. And at this point, it is the very beginning of the opera, and he's been shot at by the police. And we have to get him away. We have to help him escape to another country. Through the course of the opera, he says, "Go to the consulate, go through the proper channels, go and do this, tell them about my child, my mother, etc., and come and join me in this other country." And it is a fictitious country, according to Menotti. He says this is a fictitious country, even though the idea is that it's based on the U.S. That was actually more about Magda's character in particular. It was one particular story that we're talking about with the consulate here, with Ellis Island, basically,
Yeah.
in the United States. But it is truly about the love of a wife and the determination. And I'm playing her a little differently than sometimes is done. So we're playing her as a freedom fighter herself,
Good.
and
I
that she is very strong.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
that the reason for the end of the opera, which I'm not going to give away because it is rather tragic. There are a few deaths, sadly, along the way. My child is already sick, so the child passes. The secret police are coming to my house constantly to try to get me to pay more money, to get the knowledge of John's friends, etc. Anybody who knows or reads spy novels or anything like this will understand immediately what it's, the idea of the secret police and the spies and everybody coming to my house and trying to figure out, what do I know, what do I really know. And anybody who's ever sat in the DMV will know exactly what it's like to sit in the consulate office filling out paperwork upon paperwork upon paperwork upon paperwork.
Yeah. And
So the
getting
idea.
nowhere.
Hmm?
And getting nowhere.
Absolutely nowhere. Every day it's
Absolutely
coming back
nowhere.
and doing the same
Yeah.
thing over and over again.
But let's remind everybody. I think I did earlier, but if not, I want to repeat it again anyway. The Consul, Gian Carlo Menotti, 8 months on Broadway, a huge success in 1950 as a musical. So this
Yes.
is really a fascinating crossover work. And how does that work in terms of your voice, your professional training in opera? What is there or not anything? Because we are talking about Menotti, the opera composer.
We are. We are.
So what is that?
This piece is really fascinating. I like to call it an actor's opera,
Mm.
is the best way I like to describe it. And before I got into opera, before I worked at Upper Carolina, I actually did some outdoor theater and summer stock and did straight plays as well. And I've done some musical theater. And I like to belt on occasion. Shh. But you're likely to find me at a piano bar in New York every once in a while singing some cabaret, maybe this time, and belting up to the high F. So for me, it's a wonderful use of all of my skills. You really have to be present and fully committed throughout the piece. my character is basically off stage maybe 10, 20 minutes total in the whole 3 hours of the opera. And it is a true tour de force as far as stamina and longevity through vocally as well as from an acting standpoint, because you have to be present even when I'm on stage and I'm not singing. I have to be present and involved with everyone else that is on stage. Yes. There are moments when you might hear a little ugliness come out because it calls for that. It calls for a little nyah, a little belt in the voice every once in a while. There are times when I'm literally screaming my full head off. I'm having mad scenes. I'm having a dream, awful dreams. The last scene where I basically have a psychotic meltdown in the midst of what else is going on. I'm not going to say what because I don't want to ruin it. But it is very dark. It is very, but at the same time, there is strength in it. If you can go with the idea that Magda is doing what she has to forward the path of freedom. Yes. There is strength in what she's doing.
Yes, and by the way, there's no. What's this bit about? I don't want the ugly. I don't want the sad. I don't want. What is that? That is where the greatest art is.
I agree with you.
The greatest liberation art.
I agree.
It comes from this, and indeed, this opera is a great piece of liberation work, if only as a major protest against certain ways that things work that should not be happening, and they happen now. We're looking at Ukraine. I mean,
Yes, and that's one of the things we've actually been discussing constantly. That the cast has been talking about our own personal stories and our own personal experience with either bureaucracy or communism or going through conflicts or going through different immigration situations. I know when I was a young girl, my family was amazing and actually took me to what was the USSR, and I remember seeing the bugs in our hotel rooms and asking my mom, what is that? And seeing our tour guide not even be able to enter the same stores that we could go into. My parents were asking her what she would like as a gift, and she couldn't even indicate. If the people in the store knew it was going to her, they could arrest her. It was, and as an 8-year-old girl, that has left an absolute impression on me for the rest of my life about what freedom is and what the United States is really based on.
And how lucky of you to have this part. I'm going to have to do the overview here. You've got to get to rehearsal in like 10 minutes. So back to rehearsal. Here we are. I'm speaking with Alexandra LoBianco, soprano. She is singing the lead role of Magda Sorel in Gian Carlo Menotti's really much deserved of greater viewing. Yes. The Consul, a masterpiece, winner of the Pulitzer Prize, etc., etc. I said all that stuff. We're talking about Opera Santa Barbara in the beautiful city of Santa Barbara. I hope you're enjoying yourself.
I am.
Friday, April 25th at 7:30 p.m. at the Granada Theater, the grand skyscraper in our little community, but the beautiful, beautiful redone hall, the Granada Theater. Friday, April 25th at 7:30 in the evening, and Sunday, April 27th at 2:30 in the afternoon. Once again, as I say ad nauseum to all my Southern California friends that watch this, what a beautiful opportunity to come up, have a beautiful day in Santa Barbara, and see this opera. And may I dare say, none of you in the cast have ever performed it before. I'll just bet you. What do you think?
Honestly, Joshua Jeremiah has covered the role of John Sorrell before.
Maybe in Seattle. Seattle just did a production in February. Maybe
they did. Seattle just did one. And actually, our Vera, Carla Jablonski, is actually going to Florida Grand Opera to perform The Secretary soon. But I shouldn't have. Oh, crap. I shouldn't have said that maybe. But
no, you shouldn't
have. I'm so excited for her.
It's wonderful. We're uncensored here. So marvelous. And also just something about maybe this thing's starting to get some legs again this week.
Yes, it is. More and more people are actually realizing what an important and poignant piece this is because of what we're going back into with the talk of, as you said, the Ukraine, and even with the talk of what would happen with Putin over the Olympics, which that's a whole other story unto itself. Exactly.
Actually, I can't wait to chat with you. We'll have to have a drink sometime and really let the dirt flood.
That sounds like a marvelous idea.
But indeed, and help. I was going to say something here, something about this work. I just went out of my head, folks.
Oh
I'm
no!
so sorry. But we've got the figures. We got this place. Oh, how about ticket sales? Hello.
Yes.
The Granada Theater ticket office phone number is in Santa Barbara, area code 805 899 2222. Friday evening at 7:30, the 25th of April, Sunday afternoon at 2:30, the 27th of April. Gian Carlo Menotti's The Consul, a masterpiece that is not often performed. This deserves your
And it's in
attention,
English.
folks.
It's in English.
And of course it's in English. By the way, libretto by the composer, as he's not unknown to do. Anyway, great piece. I've got to let you go. Alexandra LoBianco, have I done that? LoBianco, excuse me so much. Right at the last minute I screw up. Oh, dear. Anywho, get back to rehearsal. I can't wait to see you in this performance. Wonderful work. I've waited since 8th grade.
It will be exciting. I can promise you that. We've got some wonderful opportunity working with Jonathan Fox, who's directing the show and who's from the Ensemble Theater. And it's really, we're doing a lot of character work, and it's a little more interesting than I think people will expect.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned Jonathan Fox. I just saw his production of Metamorphosis.
As did I. It was wonderful. The use of the water was phenomenal.
Yeah, so, anywho, sweet town we live in, and thank you very much for being part of it.
My pleasure, truly. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.